And now to MP Morantz, please.
Thank you, Governor. I just wanted to circle back to what we were talking about earlier. I just had a chance to go look up what the mandate of the Bank of Canada is. It says that your mandate is to promote the economic and financial welfare of Canada, which begs the question, when you come to the Finance Committee and members of Parliament ask you questions related to the economic and financial welfare of Canada, that you should answer them. And what I'm also surprised about is that when I had my first round, you said you would not answer questions with respect to fiscal policy, that you were here to talk about monetary policy. But then when a Liberal MP asked you a question about fiscal policy, specifically what would happen if the carbon tax was eliminated and its effect on prices, you answered that question. So I'm starting to feel like if a Liberal asks you a question about fiscal policy, you're willing to answer it, and if a Conservative asks you, you're not willing to answer it. So I'm going to try again. Okay, fair enough. I withdraw.
Thank you.
But I would like to ask, fair enough. I would like to ask a hypothetical question, which is what my colleague asked you, though. If you make the assumption, based on economic policy, that increasing the capital gains tax would have an adverse effect on GDP, and this is just a hypothetical, would that have a negative impact on tax revenues for the government?
Your question is, if the economy slows, will tax revenues be lower? The answer is yes.
The answer is yes. If the economy slows, that tax revenues will be less.
Everything else equal, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the government has projected that the increase in the capital gains inclusion rate will raise about $19 billion over 5 years. And again, this is just a hypothetical. If in fact it becomes true, and there are other economists that are willing to speak to this, Jack Mintz was here and Ian Lee all said what you don't want to say, that it would adversely affect the GDP. Would it be fair to say that the projection of the government is not accurate in terms of the tax revenues received?
You have to take your tax projections, your fiscal projections up with the fiscal authorities, not the Bank of Canada.
Why would you?
I'm happy to speak about our projections.
So why would you answer a question about fiscal policy from a Liberal
I have
MP?
answered, the reason I objective is I have answered many questions about the carbon tax from you and from your colleagues.
But arguably the capital gains tax is bigger than that. It's billions of dollars out of the economy.
Yes, but the carbon tax is, has a very direct effect on inflation. We are, if you look at our forecast, when we publish our monetary policy report, we actually have a line that shows the impact of the carbon tax on inflation. It has a very direct effect on the thing that we are charged with controlling. And so, yes, I have a responsibility to respond because it is directly affecting our remit.
So we had Ian Lee here who projected that the capital gains inclusion rate would reduce, will increase the cost to Canada. It will cause a decline of 3% in GDP. Do you agree with that assessment?
I'm glad you've got experts coming in and giving you good advice on these issues. These are really important questions, and you should get the best advice from the best experts.
So at least in this context, you're not willing to promote the economic and financial welfare of Canada by answering a question of elected officials about a major tax. Is that correct?
I am directing questions on tax to the Government of Canada, to the Department of Finance. That is their responsibility. Our responsibility is monetary policy.
With the greatest of respect, Governor, I would suggest that when you come to the Finance Committee and elected officials ask you reasonable questions, that you answer them. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, I would like some clarification. Mr. Morantz has said that he withdrew his comments earlier, so does that mean that they are struck from the record of this meeting?
You know, what I will say, P.S. Bendayan, is we expect respect and decorum for the witnesses that come before our committee. I believe the governor has made himself more than available. He's here for 2 hours, and the senior deputy governor, and the governor has answered MP Morantz, and MP Morantz did retract what he had to say
And, you know,
earlier.
in fact, I'll go farther, Mr. Chair. I apologize for that. I really do. But I think my question is reasonable, and I think you
Point
should
of
be
order, I
answering
believe that Mr. Morantz's time is up, and if the Conservatives would like to go back to their partisan attacks on the Governor of the Bank of Canada, they may do so outside of this forum.
P.S. Bendayan, we've got 20 seconds, but I don't know if the MP Morantz? No? Okay,
With,
so we are
MP
off.
Howland.
Thanks, Chair. Since I have a limited time, Governor, I just wanted to ask you, yesterday you had commented about fixing Canada's productivity problems. One of the things you highlighted was about having foreign credentials recognized that could help people get into the workforce. I know there's many brilliant immigrants in this country that end up driving Uber or taxi that we know of that could be doctors, nurses, engineers. Would you agree that if we had something like a national program in which someone could take a test or prove their skill in a certain amount of time, something like 60 days, something like that, so that they can be trained here in Canada and their credentials could be recognized. And after that point, whether it's a pass or fail, if they pass, they could go into that field of work, such as a doctor or nurse, that could help not only our healthcare system, but with the productivity issues that we're having today.
I think that's the kind of innovative thinking we need. Whether it's a national or a mutual recognition of provinces, yes, that's the kind of thing we need.
I'm happy you just endorsed our common sense conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's National Blue Seal program when he becomes Prime Minister. So thank you for that. I wanted to move on we saw that the Parliamentary Budgeting Officer recently came out with his report that the government is going to overrun their budget by $7 billion. What I wanted to know from you is that helpful in any way, not just for yourself, but for overall to our, fight in bringing down inflation? Does that help in any way? And if that trend continues, is that going to make things harder?
As I said, we're back to low inflation. The economy is actually in some excess supply.
Question is just because that's happening, does it mean that you give yourself some free reins to spend
what
more?
it means is from the narrow perspective of monetary policy, there's less sort of tension between monetary and fiscal policy. When you're above target and you're trying to get it back, spending more than planned creates tension. When you're back to target, you've
Not
got some
helpful.
excess supply. It's less of a source. It's not my role to comment on
But would you
what is
say
the best fiscal policy.
Would you say it's not helpful?
As I say, I don't really feel I need to comment
Okay.
on fiscal policy.
I'll move
given
on
that
because
we're
I only
back
have a
to
limited
target.
amount of time. I know the bank likes to, give information that's digestible for Canadians. To Canadians watching today, in your opinion, is the economy today good or bad?
The economy is soft.
Okay. What does that mean for the 2 million Canadians?
It's not bad. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's soft.
Yeah. So,
It needs to strengthen going forward.
but if we talk in relative terms of everyday Canadians that we know are suffering today, which you've acknowledged, it's the 2 million Canadians going to a food bank. It's the Tim Horton workers working in Timmins. And with GDP per capita coming down. What do you think they're thinking when they hear that, soft? Like, what does that mean to them?
Well, actually, we have a pretty good sense of what they're thinking. We survey Canadians. What we're seeing is, on financial stress, yes, there's still some financial stress. They're feeling a little less stressed than they felt. They're feeling a little more optimistic than they felt. Are they feeling good? No.
Yeah.
But they're feeling a little better than they felt.
Right, because
And we think that's going to continue to improve.
we established that those rent prices have gone up and it's staying stubbornly high. And when you look at the food bank users, 70% of them are renters. And they're the ones whose paychecks are 80% are being taken up by that. 1 in 5 of those food bank users are actually people who are employed. And food bank usage has doubled since 2019, doubled. It went from 1 million to more than 2 million people. Like, what does that say to those people or that the state of our economy?
Well, I share your concern. There's no question that people at the lower end of income distribution are having a tougher time. Many of those are renters. If you look at financial stress, it's actually concentrated more in people that don't have mortgages, tend to be obviously the renters. Whether it's their car loan, their credit card, that's where we are seeing more stress. That is a concern.
MP Helen and